Hello, it's Miss Alejandra, and this is the fourth video in our Homeschooling 101 series. Today's topic is going to be the different types of homeschooling styles that you might come across if you are interested in homeschooling, their differences and what they mean, and how that would impact the type of homeschooling curriculum that you would pick for your child at home. So I do have quite a bit of notes. There are quite a bit of different homeschooling styles. So if you see me looking down, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my notes to give you guys the correct information. So the first homeschooling style that we're going to talk about is traditional homeschooling, which is kind of what you might think of when you think of homeschooling if you don't know very much about it. So it's just very traditional, mix a classroom in that there are textbooks. You might have like a specific area where you have classes that actually looks like a classroom. It's basically doing school at home with similar methods that you might find in public or private schools, and it is generally the way that most parents and caregivers transitioning from public school public or private school transitioning into homeschooling might go into doing, only because it is very similar, like I said, to that traditional classroom style. And it might just be a little bit more comfortable for someone who is starting to learn and trying to find what might be most comfortable for them. The second homeschooling style that we're going to talk about is road schooling. So it basically is what it sounds like. Road schooling is taking your school on the road. For example, if you're learning about nature and the Grand Canyon, you might take a trip to the Grand Canyon and learn about it there. The same with any other sort of national park, or if you're learning about the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, you might take a trip to go see those and learn about them in person rather than learning about them only through a textbook or only through any online resources that you might find. So it is a more hands-on approach to learning, in that you're actually going out and taking your classroom into those areas, which for some students may work better. And of course it is full of traveling and fun. It is not going to be for everyone. None of these styles are, but it is very hands-on, again, in the sense that you're going out and learning about what you want to learn in person, rather than learning about it from a book or, like I said, a website. Similar to that is world schooling, which is just a little broader, in the sense that world schooling also involves not only learning about landmarks or things of that nature in person, but also learning about different cultures, different languages, different countries in person, rather than, again, sticking to a classroom setting. So it is even more hands-on than road schooling would be, in the sense that you're actually going out and exposing the child or the student to those different cultures, to those different languages and customs that they might not otherwise get to experience for themselves at such a young age if that wasn't the homeschooling style. It can be difficult for some parents and caregivers, only because it does include or involve a lot of travel, which is one of the main reasons that someone might pick it, is the desire to travel and travel the world with the child and introduce the child to the world around them. But it can be financially a financial strain. So that is something to consider with this, is that it's very demanding in that sense, which is fine. It comes down to what someone can do, and budgeting appropriately for that, in the way that you would budget appropriately for any of the other types of homeschooling styles. So the next one is unschooling, which does not mean no schooling. It is just very, it is not as focused on necessarily educational decisions made by the parent or the caregiver, but rather made by the child. So it is child-led, based on their interests and their strengths, and what they would like to learn or what they wouldn't like to learn. And the idea is that the child will gain any kind of other knowledge that they're missing organically as they go through, but it is something that they allow the child to drive their curiosity and their interest, to drive the learning that they're doing and pick up any other gaps that they might have on later on, just on their own and naturally by learning about the things that they are interested in and letting the child do the leading. So unschooling is very much dependent on the child, which may look different for each child. If you have more than one at home, then this may look very different in even just that one classroom with those two children who have different interests and different styles. And it is very free of any sort of preconceived notions the parent might have of what they absolutely need to learn, because it's driven by the child. Not that, you wouldn't fill in their gaps or help them learn anything else, but you're trusting them to learn in the way that they want to learn and in the way that they're telling you that they need to learn. So the next one is eclectic homeschooling, which is sort of a combination of different homeschooling styles, different homeschooling resources and methods, and it's finding a combination of whatever works for you and your situation and your family and the students, especially if there are multiple students in the classroom at home. Then Eclectic would help you match the needs of all the students by piecing together parts of things that might work and getting rid of the things that will not work. So it's kind of what it sounds like, just eclectic, putting together pieces that are going to work best for you, especially if you have been exposed to more than one type of homeschooling style and you find what you enjoy as the instructor and you find what works best for the student. Put them all together and sort of come up with your own unique style, very individualized, also very child-centered in the sense that it's created specifically for them, rather than having the child follow any other type of curriculum. There is also, the next one is classical homeschooling. So it is based on, the ultimate goal is to have to teach the child to think for themselves. And you have the child move through different learning stages. So the 3 different learning stages in classical homeschooling are the grammar stage, and that is obviously toward the younger end of the age spectrum. That would involve years where the child is building the foundation of their knowledge in many different areas, and again learning like the basics of what they need to learn. The next stage is the logic stage. So after a few years, you move out of the grammar stage, building that foundation of the basics of what knowledge you need to have, and moving into like analytical reasoning, taking that knowledge and using it to have sort of this higher critical thinking and moving toward that. And then the last stage of classical homeschooling is the rhetoric stage. So for that one, you would combine foundational knowledge gained in the grammar stage along with critical thinking skills that you learned in the logic stage, and putting them together to be able to come up with your reasonings and opinions and conclusions for yourself based on what you've learned. So it is sort of it is a larger, broader view of what your ultimate end goal is and where you're going with that. And it is just a little different from some of the other ones that we've covered, in that, you are focusing on not that you're not focusing on the overall goal with the rest of them, but this one that's always at the forefront, and that is what's leading this homeschooling style, is that ultimate end goal of reasoning, critical thinking, leading to your own opinions about what you're learning and what you know. The next one is Montessori homeschooling. If you've ever heard of a Montessori school, then this is kind of along those lines. So this is led by the idea that, again, it is child-led, and the ultimate goal is self-regulation. With this sort of homeschooling style, there is just open-ended play. It is a little bit more sensory-based as well, based on the child's interests. And the idea is that each child obviously is a unique individual, and creativity and curiosity are encouraged, which would ultimately lead, kind of like with unschooling, that creativity and that curiosity is what leads the child to want to learn more about what they're curious about, seek out information and learn it. And again, it is very child driven, and it focuses a lot on, again, learning about the world around you in a slightly different way, by incorporating open-ended play, like we said earlier, things like sandboxes where you might experience the learning in a slightly different way than not doing that. And again, it is still very child-based and very child-led. The next homeschooling style is homeschooling with unit studies. So unit studies would be where you want to focus on one theme, one unit, one subject, and the idea is to learn it, to focus on it so much that you master it. And that mastering of the theme of the unit is where the learning comes from, and then you can move on to different subject areas once you've learned so much about that unit, so much about that theme that you've mastered it. And the idea is that you take that and you learn about it deeply, and not only do you learn about it in one way, but you can focus on it multiple different ways. And by focusing on it multiple ways and looking at whatever it is that you're learning through a different lens, through a different style and things like that, then the information is just more likely to be retained, rather than something that you might read about in a chapter of a textbook and then move on. So the ultimate idea is retention and true mastering of that information that you're learning. The next one, we've got two more. The next one is the Charlotte Mason homeschooling style, which is very nature-based. So the idea is that nature, the idea is sort of combining nature along with literature and high-quality literature to create this broader spectrum of learning, including going out into nature and keeping a nature journal, focusing on, again, high-quality literature, or what she used to call living books, to help build this idea of the whole person rather than just learning through the mind, going into, taking that information that you're learning, taking it out into nature and using that to further your studies, to further the interests that you have and learn more about the world around you. Again, very nature-based, and plenty of time outdoors, development of a deep appreciation for arts and music and nature. Again, journaling. There isn't very much emphasis on traditional science curriculum, even though you are going out and spending time in the outdoors and spending time outside. The emphasis is not on the science aspect of it, but rather the art and mind aspect of being out in nature. And the last homeschooling style that we're going to talk about today is the Waldorf schooling style. So the philosophy behind that is that childhood development and early childhood development can be divided into 3 distinct phases and stages of about 7 years each. And the idea is, again, to have that be the model by which the curriculum is set. So the 3 different stages are early childhood should focus on creativity and active play, hands-on learning. So there is that sort of deviation from strictly academic learning. It's more unstructured in the sense that it's more hands-on and, again, with curiosity, creativity, all of that coming into play and leading the child and leading the education that the child has. Then you move on to the next stage, which is elementary education. Should introduce academic instruction, but still include and encourage the use of imagination to help drive that curiosity for learning, as well as managing the different types of learning that you'll do in this stage. And then the last stage of the Waldorf homeschooling style is secondary education, which would focus on critical thinking, empathy, community service, those types of things, sort of taking that model and using that foundation of knowledge that you have to bring about more analytical thinking and reasoning, and taking that empathy and using it for good, and becoming a well-rounded individual, as opposed to focusing only on academic learning. Focusing on emotional learning and managing emotions and helping is the overall idea of that last one, of this last homeschooling style. So I hope that was helpful. I know this was a long video. Thank you so much for watching. And please don't forget to leave your comments down below in the comments section. We will be doing a final video answering any questions that you guys might have through this. We know that you might have a lot of them, so we will be more than happy to answer them. So please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them, and we will get back to you guys with answers in our last video. And please keep watching our website and our social media for updates on when the next video will be released. And thanks so much for watching, you guys. Bye.